So you see, the point is that when you hold a pick firmly between your first finger and your thumb, and you hold it closer to the tip of the pick, it actually makes it easier to get closer to that string when you're playing. And so you get less inaccuracies of hitting other strings and things like that. So I want you to really try and practice that, holding that pick firmly between your first finger and your thumb, but closer to the tip of the pick, not the other way, not way back here, but closer to the front. Now, the other thing I want you to think about is one of these 3 points as we've been discussing. When you strum or you pick, you're either going to be moving from your bicep, your shoulder, that kind of area there, or you're going to be moving from your wrist, or you're going to be moving from your fingers. And depending on the technique that you're doing, you may change those. All I want you to do is be aware of the fact that that is happening. Okay, so let's think about this. If I was strumming something, like let's say I was doing like a... it's coming more from my bicep. It's coming more from up here. If I was doing something a little bit more like this, it's coming more from my fingers. And if I do something more like this, it's coming more from my wrist. And so as I play, just by nature, I'm switching where my emphasis points are. So let's think about this a little bit. Let's go back to the pentatonic scale that we've been talking about. So I'm going to play through this pentatonic scale that we've been learning, and I'm going to think about whether or not I'm coming from my elbow, my wrist, or my fingers. Now, as I'm playing that, you're going to notice I'm coming more from my wrist as I do this. Okay? But again, it's different for everybody. I just want you to be aware of that as we practice these things. So if you start getting really tired, you can kind of reassess how you're doing this and see if maybe you could loosen up. One of the big things I try and teach to all my students is that when you're trying to do things that are a little more fast, one of the things you learn how to do is you learn how to relax, where most people, they tense up. So if you think about like running, I've always been an avid runner my whole life. If you go out and you start trying to run and you're just like pounding the pavement, pushing really hard, you're going to get tired. Part of the goal with running is learning how to relax. All your muscles are relaxed and you're just moving. So, there's a difference. If a dog's chasing you, of course, all your muscles are tense because you're freaking out. The same thing happens a lot of times when people are picking, is that they get so tight like this, and you have to learn to loosen everything up. Okay, so let's move on from that idea now of thinking about those 3 points, holding the pick appropriately, to how to effectively play through this scale, keeping everything quiet. Okay, now one example that I want to show you is, let's just take that same A minor pentatonic scale again. But what I want you to do is I want you to take your index finger and go to the 5th fret of the 5th string. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to control all these strings by keeping everything quiet. And what we're going to do here is whenever I'm playing a note, again, when I'm playing a scale, the thing you always have to remember is that all the strings that are not being played are always deadened. You're never leaving them open, because if you're up on stage and you're really loud, the strings will start feeding back. They'll start vibrating and feeding back on you. So a really great thing to get used to being able to do is to deaden out all of those strings. Okay? So what I'm going to do here is with this index finger, I'm going to press on the 5th string of the 5th fret here. Okay? And I'm going to deaden out all the strings underneath me by lightly touching them with my index finger. But I'm also going to use the tip of my index finger to lightly touch the 6th string to deaden that out as well. So now, what should happen is when I strum, I'm going to strum all 6 strings, but you're only going to hear one string. Okay? So this is a great technique to get used to. Now, again, you'll see I'm moving from the elbow to get this big kind of motion happening. So this is kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan-ish, Buddy Guy-ish kind of thing when we play. And we're hitting all these strings, so we're getting the note we want, but we're also getting this percussive effect. Okay, so what's happening there is I'm protecting myself by pressing on the string that I want, but deadening out everything else around it. Okay, so now let me do that. I'm going to walk through that pentatonic, and I'm going to show you how to do that effectively. Okay, so if I'm on the first note of my A minor pentatonic, which is the 5th fret, of course, of the 6th string, I'm deadening everything else below me. That doesn't mean I want to strum everything, but it does mean two things. It means, number one, the other strings are not going to vibrate and start creating sound. And the second thing is if I was to strum bigger than, one string, you're not going to hear any of the notes. And I might do that on purpose so they don't make sound, and I might do that on purpose because I really want to hit them, kind of that Stevie Ray Vaughan sound. So I'm going to play this one note here. So this guy's controlling everything underneath there. Then I'm going to go to my pinky. Okay. Then I'm going to move over. Now at this point, I'm doing exactly what I just showed you. I am now touching the 6th string with the tip of my index finger, and I'm touching the bottom strings, the bottom 4 strings there, with my index finger as well. So when I go here, I'm still kind of touching there, you see? Now, here's where the problem occurs, is when I move to the 4th string, I can touch the ones underneath here, and that's perfectly fine. And I can touch the 5th string right on top here with the tip of my index finger, and that's fine as well. The 6th string now, though, is exposed. That's where my other hand is going to come in. My right hand's going to come in, and it's going to start deadening everything from the top on down. So as I continually move toward the floor with this hand, I'm going to continually move in with my right hand and start deadening everything on the way down. That way the strings above me are no longer making sound as well. So watch as I do this nice and slow. I'm going to play through that pentatonic, and I want you to see how this right hand is coming in and the left hand is continually touching everything as I go. So here is the 6th string. Here's the 5th string. Now I'm touching that 6th string. Now here, right there, I'm right here. Moving down, I'm touching more, touching pretty much everything over here. Okay? So it's a really great thing to get used to. Now, I don't have a lot of distortion on here, but if I did have a lot of distortion as I play, you're going to hear all these other strings start vibrating, and that's what you're trying to get rid of. So as you're playing licks, or various exercises that we've been talking about here, you see, all you're hearing is the strings that you're supposed to be hearing. If I go to a bend, I'm touching all the strings above with this hand and all the strings below with this hand. So they're not making sounds, okay? So it's an effective technique. It's deadening, okay? So the 2 points that we're really trying to focus on here as we're playing through this scale is, where are we picking, right? Are we picking from the elbow and the bicep? Are we picking from the wrist? Or are we picking from the fingers? When you're strumming, when you're picking, if you're picking slow, if you're picking fast, it's going to change, and I just want you to be aware of that. Okay? Think about how you're holding on to the pick. Okay? And now you're also thinking about how you're going to deaden out those strings. Okay? As you move through and you're playing various licks or, just passages through the scale. How you can keep everything quiet. See? I'm always touching. So like right there, my 3rd finger is touching all the ones underneath. If I'm here, this guy's touching all the strings. See? So you're always in control. And then remember also, we've talked earlier in this course about the fact of grabbing on. Is it comfortable for you to grab onto the body of the guitar as you're doing this? With your pinky, with your 3rd finger, with both? Is it more comfortable for you to brace from this position of your arm and hold on from there for stability? And these are all things that you have to work through, okay? But they're great to think about to try and figure out how to just make this whole environment more comfortable for you. So as you're moving through these scales, everything just seems to flow easier, okay?